So when you're handling plastics, again, wear nitrile gloves, especially with anything that might be leaching slightly like this one. It becomes quite porous, and then you could easily end up leaving fingerprints embedded in the plastic forever. Can't get rid of it. Or you've also got Bakelite here. Anything that's sort of foam, which could be certain things in the childhood collection, certain toys and things, also some elements of costume. Foam can absorb a lot of moisture and then become very, very heavy. So just be aware of that. If it's dry, it's not heavy. If it's wet, it could become very, very heavy. You want to make sure that you're avoiding any surface abrasion when you're moving things or drying things, because they do scratch. This is quite badly abraded in this area here. If there are any applied surfaces, so I mean, for example, with dolls, obviously a lot of the time their faces have got an applied surface, so you want to make sure that is you just have to be aware of it. So when you're drying, probably approach with caution, and don't, just try a little bit first to make sure you're not taking anything off. Because with plastics there's often multiple materials involved, so with this one, her hair is a different kind of plastic, her eyelashes are a different kind of plastic, some of her clothes have got elements of plastic, so there'll be different types, they won't all be the same, so there might be slightly different responses to whatever has happened, and so that's just another thing to be aware of. When often they're quite small things, especially in our collection, our plastics tend to be quite small, so they can be crated up together, but just again ensure that things are separated using tissue, bubble wrap, plasterzote, different inert packing materials. Hazards in terms of plastics to be aware of is that if some plastics are exposed to heat, then chemical reactions might start, and that can produce a certain amount of toxic and harmful off-gassing. And some plastics might become quite acidic, so that's all sort of stuff to be aware of. That if you're then opening say if it's here and we've got lots and lots of dolls in boxes and you're trying to get them out, you're probably better off keeping them in the box until you're in a well ventilated place before opening the box, so that if anything is off-gassing, it's off-gassing in a well ventilated place, because some of the harmful gases that are produced can be carcinogenic, for example, so it's just being as safe as possible and aware of that. Also, some plastics can basically dissolve or swell in water. So, for example, there are certain types of plastic sequins that you get that become quite gelatinous if they get wet, and it's almost like they're made out of like rubber or something, and that can also make the object that they're on quite heavy, and it can also make it quite alarming because you think the sequins are probably metal and then they're not. And the same can be true of other things as well. So they can swell or they can dissolve. So you might sort of find the doll's fingers are dissolving slightly. It really depends, because you can't always know, especially with older plastics, exactly how they might respond. If you are going to be salvaging them, then obviously you want to get the most the things that are on the priority list out first, and then do the remainder as you get through. And if anything has to be protected in situ, then you can cover them in a waterproof polythene sheet. When you are drying them, if they're wet, then as with most things, you can blot them dry, don't rub with paper towels. At all possible, you want to avoid that applied finish. It's got wet and you can see that the applied finish, for example, her face, if you can see that it's running, then you probably want to make sure that you don't allow that to run any further, so you might want to stop it running, but in general you probably don't want to be doing too much dabbing on anything that's painted. Also, a lot of the time plastic objects are hollow, so don't forget there might be water in there as well. Yeah, horrific doll face melting. Yeah, something to look forward to for all of us. Yes, so because a lot of plastics are hollow, like this or like this, then there could be water inside that can make it more heavy. Also, the water could be contaminated, so that's just all stuff to sort of just be aware of in the back of your head. If you can, if it's something that is easy to dismantle, which is sort of more likely to be something like, I don't know, Susan might have some ideas, like a Cindy dream house maybe, or a train set, then it's probably easier to dismantle it. If it's something that's too complicated to dismantle, then move it as one, and make sure that you store all the components together. Again, very important so they don't become disassociated from each other. You want to be sure that you're air drying without any heat. And also, if there are any batteries, and this applies to pretty much everything, but it's sort of more obvious with toys, if there are any batteries, remove them. Because, yeah, the batteries can be hazardous if they get wet. They can produce lead corrosion, depending on type of battery. So just, yeah, again, be aware of batteries. And then when you're salvaging plastics that are dry, again, make sure that they stay together, dry things stay dry. Store them away from direct sunlight, which can be really harmful to plastic and cause self-catalyzing reactions where plastics might darken and so on. And make sure that they're in a cool area so that there isn't any kind of additional reaction starting. And make sure that they're protected from frost. And you probably wouldn't freeze them if they were wet. You shouldn't really need to freeze them if they were wet. So yeah.